Captain Nala stared at the dead control panel in front of her. The lights that should have been blinking green were dark. The hum of the ship's engines had stopped 3 hours ago. Now the only sound on the bridge was the quiet breathing of her crew and the slow beep of the emergency systems. "How long do we have?" she asked Tova, her chief engineer. Tova looked up from her handheld device. Her blue skin had turned pale, and her large eyes showed fear. 6 hours of air left, Captain. Maybe 7 if we shut down all non-essential systems. Nala nodded slowly. The Villani were a peaceful people. They built ships for science and exploration, not for war. The Harmony's Echo was designed to study distant stars and collect samples from new worlds. It was not built to survive attacks or engine failures in deep space. "What about the distress beacon?" asked Kale from his navigation station. The old Villani had served on ships for 40 years. He had never seen a situation this bad. "Still working," Tova replied. "But we're far from any Villani worlds. The nearest patrol ship is 12 days away." 12 days. They would all be dead long before help arrived from their own people. Nala walked to the main view screen. Outside, space looked calm and beautiful. Stars twinkled like tiny jewels against the black void. It was hard to believe that this peaceful scene would soon become their grave. "Captain," Kale's voice was tight with worry, "I'm picking up ships on long-range sensors, 3 vessels moving fast in our direction." For a moment, Nala felt hope. Then she saw Kale's expression. "Creks?" she asked. Kale nodded. "Their energy signatures match Krek's battle cruisers. They'll be here in 2 hours." The hope died in Nala's chest. The Kreks were raiders and killers. They attacked peaceful ships, took what they wanted, and left no survivors. If the engine failure didn't kill them, the Kreks would. Tova looked up from her repairs. "Captain, I can't fix the main engine. Too much damage. Even if I had days to work on it, I'm not sure I could get us moving again." Nala closed her eyes. As captain, it was her job to keep her crew safe. 23 Villani lives depended on her decisions. But what could she do? They had no weapons worth mentioning, no way to run, and no way to hide. "Should we prepare to surrender?" asked Kyle quietly. "The Kreks don't take prisoners," Nala replied. Everyone on the bridge knew this. The Kreks saw other species as either useful or in the way. The Villani, with their peaceful nature and weak bodies, were definitely in the way. "We could try the emergency beacon again," suggested Tova. "Send out a call on all frequencies." Who would answer? Kyle shook his head. "We're in the outer rim. The only ships out here are traders, raiders, and—" He stopped talking. "And what?" Nala asked. Kale looked uncomfortable. "And humans, Captain. This area is close to human space." A chill ran through the bridge. Every Villani had heard stories about humans. They came from a world so dangerous that most species couldn't survive there for more than a few minutes. Their planet had deadly weather, poisonous air, and creatures that could kill with just their teeth and claws. Yet somehow, humans had not just survived, but become the dominant species on their world. The stories said that humans were violent and unpredictable. They fought wars against each other for thousands of years. They created weapons that could destroy entire cities. They called their planet Earth, but other species had a different name for it. They called it a death world. "Maybe the stories aren't true," said Tova, hopefully. "Maybe humans aren't as bad as people say." Kyle made a sound that might have been a laugh. My cousin served on a trading ship that met humans once. He said they were polite enough, but he could see it in their eyes. They were always watching, always ready for a fight. And their ship? It wasn't built for trading, it was built for war. All their ships are built for war, added another crew member, because they come from a world where everything tries to kill them. Nala thought about their options. They could die slowly as their air ran out. They could die quickly when the Kreks arrived. Or they could send a distress call and hope that whoever answered would be better than the Kreks. It wasn't much of a choice. Tova, prepare an emergency broadcast on all frequencies, she ordered. Standard distress call. Include our position and the fact that we have wounded aboard. Yes, Captain. Tova's fingers moved over her console. Should I mention the Kreks? Yes. Anyone who comes to help should know what they're facing. The message went out into space, traveling at the speed of light toward any ship that might be listening. Nala didn't have much hope. Who would risk their lives for a ship full of strangers? Especially strangers as weak and helpless as the Vallani. Message. Sent, Captain, reported Tova. Now they could only wait. Wait and hope that death would come quickly when it finally arrived. An hour passed. The Kreks ships were getting closer. Kale tracked their movement on his sensors, updating their position every few minutes. They were definitely heading for the Harmony's echo. Captain, Kale's voice was strange. I'm picking up new contacts. 3 ships, coming from human space. They're moving very fast. Nala felt her heart skip a beat. Kreks reinforcements? No, Captain. The energy signatures are different. These are human ships. The bridge fell silent. Everyone stared at the sensor display as 3 new dots appeared on the screen. They were moving faster than any ship the Vallani had ever seen, heading straight for their position. Will they reach us before the Kreks? Asked Nala. Kale checked his calculations twice. Yes, Captain. The human ships will be here in 20 minutes. The Kreks won't arrive for another hour. Are the humans answering our distress call? Unknown, Captain. They haven't responded to our hails. Nala stared at the approaching dots on the screen. In a few minutes, she would find out if the stories about humans were true. Were they violent killers who would see the Vallani as easy prey? Or were they something else entirely? Either way, their fate was now in the hands of the galaxy's most feared species. The Deathworlders were coming. All crew to emergency stations, Nala ordered. Prepare for contact with human vessels. As her crew rushed to follow her orders, Nala wondered if she had just saved her people or doomed them to an even worse fate. Soon, she would find out which stories about humans were true. The human ships arrived like thunder in the void. Captain Nala watched through the view screen as 3 vessels dropped out of hyperspace near her crippled ship. They were unlike anything she had ever seen. Where Vallani ships were smooth and curved. Like shells from the ocean, these human vessels looked sharp and dangerous. They had angles that seemed designed to cut through space itself. The largest ship moved with surprising grace for something so massive. Weapons ports lined its hull like rows of teeth. Smaller ships flanked it on both sides, their hulls dark and sleek. Even without firing a shot, they looked deadly. Captain, Kale's voice shook slightly. The Kreks ships have changed course. They're moving to intercept the humans. The humans know about the Kreks? They must, Captain. Their ships are moving into attack formation. Nala had never seen a space battle before. The Vallani avoided conflict whenever possible. But she was about to witness what happened when raiders met Deathworlders. The fight began without warning. The Kreks ships fired first, sending bright energy beams toward the human vessels. The humans responded immediately. Their weapons were different from anything Nala had seen. Instead of single beams, they fired multiple projectiles that glowed like tiny stars. The battle was over in minutes. The human ships moved like living things, dodging and weaving around the Krek's attacks. Their return fire was precise and devastating. One by one, the Krek's vessels exploded into balls of fire and debris. The humans didn't just defeat their enemies, they destroyed them completely. When the last Krek ship disappeared in a flash of light, the human vessels turned toward the Harmony's echo. Nala felt her crew tense around her. They had just watched. The humans destroy 3 warships without taking any damage themselves. What would they do to one helpless science vessel? Captain, Tova reported from her station. The humans are hailing us. Put them through. The view screen flickered and changed. Instead of empty space, Nala found herself looking at a human face. The human was smaller than she had expected. The stories made them sound like giants, but this one was barely taller than a Vellani. His skin was tan and weathered, and his dark eyes looked intelligent rather than savage. When he spoke, his voice was calm and steady. "This is Captain Deho of the UES Indomitable. Are you in need of assistance?" Nala blinked in surprise. She had expected demands or threats. Instead, the human sounded genuinely concerned. "I am Captain Nala of the Vellani vessel Harmony's Echo. Our engines have failed and our life support is running low." Captain Deho nodded. "We monitored your distress call. My chief engineer is preparing a repair team. We can also provide temporary life support if needed. You want to help us?" The human looked puzzled by the question. "Of course. That's why we're here." Kyle leaned close to Nala and whispered urgently, "Captain, this could be a trap. The stories say humans take prisoners for their slave markets." Nala held up a hand for silence, but she shared Kale's concerns. "Why would the most dangerous species in the galaxy want to help strangers?" "Captain Deho," she said carefully, "we appreciate your offer, but we have nothing of value to trade." The human's expression grew even more puzzled. "Trade? Captain Nala? You sent a distress signal. We're responding to that signal. No trade is necessary." "But surely you want something in return?" Captain Deho was quiet for a moment. Then his face softened slightly. "Captain, I think there may be some misunderstandings between our species. Would you allow me to send a small team aboard your ship? My doctor can check on your wounded, and my engineer can assess your damage. We can discuss everything else after we make sure your people are safe." Nala looked around her bridge. Her crew watched her with wide, frightened eyes. They were all thinking the same thing. Once humans were aboard their ship, there would be no way to stop them from taking whatever they wanted. But what choice did they have? Their air would run out in a few hours. At least with the humans, they had a chance. "Very well, Captain Deho. You may send your team aboard." "Thank you, Captain. We'll be over in 15 minutes. The transmission ended, leaving Nala alone with her worried crew. "Captain," Kale said quietly, "are you sure about this?" "No," Nala replied honestly. "But we're dead if we do nothing. At least this way, we might survive." 15 minutes later, a small human shuttle docked with the Harmony's Echo. Nala met the human team at the airlock with 2 of her security officers. She wasn't sure what good they would do against Deathworlders, but she had to try to maintain some appearance of control. The airlock opened, and 3 humans stepped aboard her ship. The first was a woman with short black hair and kind eyes. She carried a medical bag and moved with quick, efficient motions. The second was a man with grease-stained coveralls and a toolkit that looked like it could repair anything. The third wore a uniform that marked him as security, but his weapon stayed in its holster. "I'm Dr. Yu-Jin," the woman said with a smile. "This is Chief Engineer Won-Sik and Security Officer Nam-il. Thank you for allowing us aboard." Nala stared at them. They looked so normal. The stories had described humans as monsters with fangs and claws. These three looked like any other, spacefaring species, just with different skin and hair. "You're welcome," Nala managed to say. "Our wounded are in the medical bay." Dr. Yu-Jin nodded and followed Nala through the ship's corridors. As they walked, the human looked around with obvious interest. "Your ship has beautiful design," she commented. "Very elegant, much more artistic than our vessels." "Thank you. Though, I suspect your ships are more practical for survival." "Different needs, different designs," Dr. Yu-Jin replied. "We build our ships to handle dangerous situations. You build yours for exploration and discovery. Both have their place." They reached the medical bay, where 3 injured Villani lay on treatment beds. They had been hurt when the engine exploded, suffering burns and broken bones. Dr. Yu-Jin examined them quickly but thoroughly. "The injuries are serious but treatable," she announced. "I can help with the burns right away. The broken bones will need more time. But your people should recover fully." "You can heal them?" Nala asked in amazement. "Of course. It's what doctors do." Dr. Yu-Jin began treating the wounded with skill and gentleness that surprised Nala. This was not the behavior of a savage killer. This was someone who genuinely cared about helping others. Meanwhile, Engineer Won-Sik had found his way to the engine room with Tova. Nala could hear them talking through the ship's communication system. "The damage is extensive," Won-Sik was saying, "but not impossible to fix. We'll need to replace the main power coupling and rebuild the plasma conduits. It will take about 6 hours of work." "6 hours?" Tova sounded amazed. "I thought it would take days, if it could be fixed at all." Human engineering tends to be more direct than most species. We build things to be repaired quickly under difficult conditions. "Because your world is so dangerous?" Won-Sik chuckled. "Among other reasons, yes. When your environment is constantly trying to kill you, you learn to fix things fast." Nala listened to the conversation with growing confusion. These humans didn't sound like the monsters from the stories. They sounded like people who genuinely wanted to help. "Captain Nala," Dr. Yu-Jin said softly, "may I ask why you seem so surprised by our behavior?" Nala hesitated. She didn't want to offend the people who were saving her crew, but the question had been asked directly. "The stories we hear about humans," she said carefully, "make your people sound very aggressive." Dr. Yu-Jin nodded thoughtfully. "I suppose we can be when we need to be. You saw how we dealt with the Krex Raiders, but aggression isn't the only thing humans are capable of." "What do you mean?" "On our world, we learned that survival sometimes means fighting, but it also means helping each other. A human alone on Earth would die quickly. We survive because we work together, because we take care of each other. That instinct doesn't disappear when we leave our planet." "So you help other species too?" "When we can, yes. Why wouldn't we?" It was such a simple question, but it made Nala realize how wrong the stories had been, or at least how incomplete they were. Yes, humans could be dangerous. She had seen them destroy the Krex ships with terrifying efficiency. But they could also be kind, helpful, and caring. Maybe the most dangerous species in the galaxy were dangerous in more ways than one. Maybe they were dangerous to those who threatened others, but safe for those who needed help. As Dr. Yujin continued treating her wounded crew members, Nala began to think that her people might have misunderstood what it meant to be a Deathworlder. 3 hours into the repairs, everything changed. Nala was in the engine room, watching engineer Wan-Sik work alongside Tova to fix the damaged power systems. The humans' methods were different from anything she had seen before. Where Villani engineering was careful and precise, Wan-Sik's approach was fast and practical. He had already repaired systems that Tova thought were beyond saving. "Your people are very good at this," Tova said, wiping grease from her hands. Wan-Sik smiled. "We have to be. On Earth, if something breaks, you fix it quickly or you die. There's no time for careful planning when a storm is coming or predators are hunting you." "It must be a terrible world to live on," Tova replied with sympathy. "Not terrible," Wan-Sik corrected gently. "Challenging. It made us stronger, more adaptable. And when you survive a world like Earth, other problems seem easier to solve." That was when Kale's voice came over the ship's communication system, tight, with fear. "Captain Nala to the bridge immediately. We have a problem." Nala ran through the corridors, her heart's pounding. She found Kyle staring at his sensor display with wide, frightened eyes. Dr. Yujin was already there, having heard the call while treating patients in the medical bay. "What is it?" Nala asked. Kale pointed at his screen. "Long-range sensors are picking up a massive fleet. Krex ships, at least 50 of them, moving in our direction." Dr. Yujin stepped forward to look at the display. Her expression grew serious. "How long until they arrive?" 18 hours, Kyle replied. "Maybe 20 if they stop to regroup." "That's a full invasion fleet," Dr. Yujin said quietly. "Much larger than the scouts we destroyed earlier." Nala felt her legs grow weak. "Invasion fleet?" "Captain." Kyle's voice was barely a whisper. "I think those scouts were just the advance guard. This fleet is heading for Villani space. Our home, worlds." The truth hit Nala like a physical blow. The attack on their ship hadn't been random. The Krex weren't just raiding anymore. They were planning to conquer the entire Villani Confederation. "We have to warn our people," she said urgently. "With what?" Kale asked helplessly. "Our communications array was damaged in the engine explosion. We can barely send signals a few light years." Dr. Yujin activated her wrist communicator. "Captain, Day-Ho, please come to the Villani Bridge. We have a situation." Within minutes, Captain Day-Ho materialized on the bridge through a transporter beam. Nala was still amazed by human technology. The Villani had never mastered matter transportation. "What's the problem?" Day-Ho asked. Dr. Yujin showed him the sensor data. Captain Day-Ho studied the information for a long moment, his expression growing darker. "A Krex invasion fleet," he said finally, "heading for populated Villani worlds." "Can you warn our people?" Nala asked desperately. "Your ships have better communication systems than ours." "We can send a warning," Day-Ho replied, "but it might not be enough. How many ships does your Confederation have for defense?" Nala felt ashamed to answer. "We have patrol vessels for emergencies and supply ships for trade. We don't have warships. The Villani are a peaceful people." "How peaceful?" asked Dr. Yujin gently. "We haven't fought a war in over 300 years. We solve disputes through negotiation and compromise. Violence is..." Nala struggled to find the words. "Violence is not something we understand." Captain Day-Ho and Dr. Yujin exchanged a look that Nala couldn't interpret. "Captain Nala, Deho said carefully. What do you know about the Krex expansion? Expansion? They've been conquering systems throughout this region for the past 2 years. Peaceful species, mostly. Ones that can't fight back effectively. Nala felt sick. We didn't know. We thought they were just raiders. They are raiders, Dr. Yujin said. But they're also conquerors. They take over systems, enslave the populations, and use the resources to build bigger fleets for more conquests. Our people won't know how to fight them, Nala whispered. We'll be defenseless. The bridge fell silent except for the quiet hum of life support systems. Nala stared at the sensor display showing the approaching Krex fleet. 50 ships full of warriors heading toward worlds full of scientists, artists, and explorers who had never hurt anyone. There might be another option, Captain Deho said slowly. What do you mean? My ships were part of a larger patrol group. I have Admiral Hanul's direct communication codes. If I explain the situation, she might authorize additional ships to help defend your worlds. Nala looked at him in surprise. You would do that? Risk human lives for people you barely know? Captain Nala, Dr. Yujin said gently. What did you think we were doing when we answered your distress call? I thought you were being kind to strangers. Exactly, Captain Deho said. Your people are in danger. If we can help, we will. But why? Nala asked. What do humans gain from protecting the Villani? Wansik's voice came from the doorway. He had finished the engine repairs and come to see what was happening. Do we need to gain something? I don't understand. Wansik walked over to stand beside his captain. On Earth, we have a saying, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. The Krex are evil. They hurt innocent people for profit. We're good people, so we do something. It's that simple? Nala asked. It's that simple, Dr. Yujin confirmed. Tova appeared in the doorway behind Wansik. She had been listening to the conversation. Captain, she said to Nala, our engines are fixed. We can return to Villani space to help evacuate civilians. Evacuate? Nala shook her head. We have billions of people on dozens of worlds. Where would they go? Human space, Captain Deho said without hesitation. We have colonies that can take refugees. It won't be comfortable, but your people will be safe. Nala stared at him. You would take in billions of refugees? If necessary, yes. But we're aliens to you, different species. So? Wansik shrugged. Your people in trouble. That's all that matters. Nala felt something she had never experienced before. The humans weren't just offering to fight for her people. They were offering to give them new homes if fighting wasn't enough. They were willing to share their worlds with complete strangers from a different species. Captain, Dr. Yujin said gently, there's something else you should know. Your ship was carrying scientific data when you were attacked, research files, and star charts. If the Krex had captured that information, they would know about our defense systems, Nala finished. Or rather, our lack of defense systems. Exactly. But now that data is safe, and more importantly, your scientists might have information that could help us fight the Krex more effectively. Tova stepped forward excitedly. We do have data. Our research team has been studying Krex technology for months. We know about their shield frequencies and weapon capabilities. That information could save thousands of lives, Captain Deho said. Would you be willing to share it? Of course, Nala replied immediately. If it helps protect innocent people, you can have anything we know. Then we have a chance, Dr. Eugene said with growing excitement. Human military tactics combined with Vellani scientific knowledge. The Kreks won't expect that kind of cooperation. Will it be enough? Nala asked. Captain Deho looked at the sensor display again, studying the approaching fleet. I don't know, he said honestly, but it's better than giving up without trying. And if we fail? Then your people will have new homes among the stars, and the galaxy will know that the Vellani didn't face extinction alone. Nala looked around the bridge at the humans who had already done so much for her people. Dr. Eugene, who had healed their wounded without asking for payment. One sick, who had fixed their engines and treated Tova like an equal partner. Captain Deho, who was willing to risk his ships and crew for strangers. These were the galaxy's most feared species, the Deathworlders who survived on a planet that killed everything else. And they were the kindest people Nala had ever met. Captain Deho, she said formally, the Vellani Confederation officially requests the aid of the human fleet in defending our people against the Kreks invasion. Captain Nala, Deho replied with equal formality, the human fleet accepts your request and pledges to stand with the Vellani people against this threat. As the two captains shook hands, Nala realized that everything she had believed about humans was wrong. They weren't just dangerous because they could kill. They were dangerous because they couldn't be stopped from protecting others. The Kreks were about to learn the difference. Admiral Hanuel arrived 12 hours later with 20 human warships. Nala watched from the bridge of the Harmony's Echo as the human fleet assembled around her small science vessel. Each ship was different, but all carried the same message. These vessels were built for war. Their hulls bristled with weapons, their engines glowed with barely contained power, and their formations moved with the precision of predators. Impressive, Kyle whispered beside her. I've never seen so many warships in one place. I've never seen any warships, Nala replied. The Vellani simply didn't build such things. Even seeing them made her uncomfortable, though she was grateful. They were on her side. The main view screen activated, showing Admiral Hanuel's stern face. She was older than Captain Deho, with gray hair and eyes that had seen many battles. When she spoke, her voice carried absolute authority. Captain Nala, I understand your people are facing invasion by a Kreks fleet. Yes, Admiral. 50 ships, possibly more. We have 23 ships that can reach Vellani space before the Kreks arrive. Not ideal odds, but we've faced worse. Commander Sunmi, Hanuel's tactical officer, appeared on screen beside the Admiral. Captain Nala, we need to understand your people's capabilities. Do you have any ships that can fight? Nala felt embarrassed again. We have patrol vessels with basic defensive systems. They're designed to ward off pirates, not fight invasion. Fleets. How many? Perhaps 30 ships scattered across our 12 worlds. Sunmi did quick calculations in her head. 53 ships total against a fleet of 50 Kreks warships. The numbers are close, but the Kreks ships are built for battle. However, Admiral Hanuel continued, Captain Deho tells me you have valuable scientific data about Kreks technology. Yes, Admiral. Our research teams have been studying their ships for months. Excellent. I'm sending my science team to work with your people. If we can find weaknesses in their technology, we might be able to even the odds. Over the next few hours, Nala watched something she had never imagined possible. Human and Vellani. Crews began working together as if they had been allies for years. Engineer Kyung-ho transported over from the human flagship with a team of technicians. They immediately began working with Tova and her fellow Vellani engineers to study the Kreks. Data! Look at this, Tova said excitedly, pointing to readouts on her screen. The Kreks shield generators have a weakness. They cycle power every 37 seconds to prevent overheating. Kyung-ho studied the data carefully. A 3-second window when their shields are at minimum strength. That's not much time, but it might be enough. Enough for what? Human. Weapons fire much faster than most species' weapons. If we time our attacks correctly, we could punch through their shields during those weak moments. In the medical bay, Dr. Yoo-jin was training Vellani medical staff in combat medicine. The Vellani had excellent doctors, but they had never treated battle injuries before. The key is speed, Yoo-jin explained to a group of Vellani medics. In battle, there's no time for careful diagnosis. You stabilize the patient quickly and move to the next one. But what if we make mistakes? Asked one of the Vellani doctors. A quick treatment that saves a life is better than a perfect treatment that comes too late, Yoo-jin replied gently. You'll learn to balance speed with accuracy. On the bridge of Admiral Han-Yul's flagship, tactical planning sessions brought together the best minds from both species. Commander Sun-mi worked with Vellani navigator specialists to plan attack routes through the star system. Your people know this region better than we do, Sun-mi admitted. We need that knowledge to set up effective ambush points. Rion, a young Vellani scientist, had never imagined she would be planning military strategy. But she found herself fascinated by the humans' tactical thinking. You always plan for multiple possibilities, she observed. What if this happens? What if that fails? Vellani planning tends to assume everything will go according to plan. On Earth, things rarely go according to plan, Sun-mi replied with a smile. We learn to expect problems and prepare for them. Is that why your people are so successful at warfare? Partly. But it's also why we're good at science, exploration, and problem-solving. Expecting difficulties makes you better at overcoming them. Security Chief Jamin spent his time training Vellani crew members in basic self-defense. The Vellani were not naturally violent, but they were quick learners. Don't think of it as hurting someone, Jamin explained as he showed them simple defensive moves. Think of it as protecting your friends and family. We understand the concept, replied one of the Vellani trainees. We just never needed to practice it before. Hopefully, you'll never need to practice it again after this. But everyone should know how to defend themselves and others. As the hours passed, Nala began to see changes in her people. The Vellani, crew members who worked with the humans, started to move with more confidence. They learned to speak more directly, to make faster decisions, and to trust their instincts. But the humans were changing too. Nala noticed that they spoke more gently. Around the Vellani, took time to explain their methods and showed genuine interest in Vellani culture and science. It's remarkable, Dr. Yoo-jin said to Nala during a brief break in the medical training. Your people have such advanced knowledge of biology and chemistry. Some of your medical techniques are more sophisticated than ours. But you're better at treating injuries quickly. Different needs create different skills. Your people focused on understanding and healing. Ours focused on surviving and fighting. Together, we're stronger than either could be alone. Captain Dae-ho found Nala in the observation lounge, looking out at the combined fleet. Human and Vellani ships moved together in formation, their crews working as one unit despite being different species. Are you worried about the battle? He asked. Terrified, Nala replied honestly. My people have never faced anything like this. Neither have mine. We've fought the Kreks before, but never to defend another species' homeworld. It's different when you're fighting for someone else's family instead of your own. Is it harder? Dae-ho considered the question. In some ways, But it's also easier to be brave when you're protecting others. When it's just about survival, you might run. When it's about saving innocent people, running isn't an option. Why do humans do this? Risk your lives for strangers? Because if we don't, who will? The galaxy has plenty of species who take what they want by force. It needs some who will. Stand up to them. And you chose to be protectors instead of conquerors? We chose to be both. We conquer our fears, our limitations, and our enemies, but we protect those who can't protect themselves. Diplomat Mina joined them at the observation window. She had been working with Vallani political leaders through long-range communications, laying the groundwork for a formal alliance. The Vallani Council has agreed to the Mutual Defense Treaty, she reported. Once this crisis is over, our species will be formal allies. What does that mean exactly? Nala asked. It means human ships will patrol Vallani space to deter future attacks. It means Vallani scientists will share their research with human universities. It means trade, cultural exchange, and cooperation between our peoples. And it means, added Captain Deho, that neither of our species will face threats alone anymore. Nala looked out at the fleet again. Human ships and Vallani vessels moving, together, their crews learning from each other, their technologies combining to create something stronger than either could manage alone. I never imagined this when we sent out that distress call, she said quietly. What did you imagine? Asked Minna. Death, mostly. Either from our failing life support, the Krex raiders, or the humans who answered our call. And now? Nala watched a human shuttle dock with a Vallani patrol ship carrying technical specialists to upgrade the Vallani vessel's weapon systems. Now I think we might actually have a chance. Against the Krex fleet? Against anything. When I look at that fleet out there, I don't see human ships and Vallani ships anymore. I see our ships, our people, our alliance. Captain Deho smiled. That's exactly how it should be. 6 hours later, long-range sensors detected the Krex invasion fleet, dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of Vallani territory. The battle was about to begin. But as Nala looked around the command center, seeing human and Vallani officers working side by side, she felt something she had never experienced before a fight. Hope. The Deathworlders had taught her people how to be dangerous, not for conquest or cruelty, but for protection and justice. And together, they were about to show the Krex what happened when predators met protectors. The Krex fleet entered Vallani space like a swarm of angry insects. From the bridge of the human flagship Determination, Nala watched the enemy ships spread out across the star system. Their formation was designed to intimidate rather than fight, effectively. They expected the peaceful Vallani to surrender without resistance, just like all their previous victims. 52 ships confirmed, reported Commander Sunmi. All armed with heavy weapons and boarding equipment. They're planning to capture our people alive for slave labor. Fleet Admiral Dong Hyun, the overall commander of the defense, studied the tactical display with calm eyes. He was the most senior human officer present, a veteran of dozens of space battles. When he spoke, every person on the bridge listened. They're arranging themselves around the primary colony world, he observed. Classic intimidation formation. They want the Vallani to see their fleet and surrender immediately. Will that work? Asked Nala nervously. Not today, Admiral Dong Hyun replied with quiet confidence. Commander Sunmi, signal all ships. Begin. Operation Shield Wall. The combined human Vallani fleet had hidden behind the system's largest moon, using its mass to block Krex sensors. Now they moved out in a formation that Nala had helped design. The fast human warships formed the front line, while Volani vessels with their improved sensors and shields provided support from behind. Krek's fleet is responding, Sunmi reported. They're turning to face us, but their formation is confused. They weren't expecting organized resistance. On the communication channels, Nala could hear the voices of Volani ship captains preparing for their first real battle. Many of them sounded scared, but none suggested retreating. The time for peaceful solutions had passed. "This is Captain Boram of the Resilience," came a voice over the fleet communications. "Volani patrol ship Star Seeker is reporting shield fluctuations. Moving to provide cover." "Acknowledged, Resilience," replied the Volani captain. "Thank you for the protection." The first exchange of fire began when the Krek's fleet launched long-range missiles at the approaching Alliance fleet. The human ships responded immediately with their point defense systems, filling space with interceptor fire that destroyed most of the incoming weapons. But some missiles got through, and that's when the Volani technology proved its worth. The improved shield systems, now powered by human fusion reactors, absorbed the hits without failing. "Direct hit on the Harmony's Echo," reported Tova from the engineering station. "Shields holding at 70%. "Return fire," ordered Admiral Dong Hyun. "All ships target their lead vessels. Remember the timing windows." The Alliance fleet fired as one, their weapons coordinated to strike during the brief moments when Krek's shields were cycling power. The combined firepower of human weapons and Volani targeting systems proved devastating. 3 Krek's ships exploded in the first volley. "Impossible," whispered Kale from his sensor station. "How did we destroy 3 ships so quickly?" "Teamwork," replied Wonsik with satisfaction. "Human weapons, Volani precision, and perfect timing." The Krek's fleet responded with confusion and anger. They charged forward in a disorganized assault, expecting their superior numbers to overwhelm the smaller defense force. But the Alliance fleet was ready for them. Human ships danced between enemy vessels with incredible agility, their pilots, using techniques learned from surviving on a deadly planet. Meanwhile, Volani ships provided sensor data and shield support, their crews working with calm efficiency despite the chaos around them. "Krek's boarding ships approaching the Star Seeker," reported Sunmi urgently. "Defiance and Courage moving to—" "Intercept!" came Captain Wu Jin's voice over the communications. "We won't let them through!" Nala watched as 2 human frigates threw themselves between the Krek's boarders and the vulnerable Volani vessel. Captain Wu Jin's ship took heavy damage protecting their allies, but the Krek's boarding attempt failed completely. "Courage has taken critical damage," Wu Jin reported, his voice strained. "Life support failing, engines offline." "This is the Star Seeker," came the Volani captain's reply. "We're moving to assist. Prepare for emergency docking." As the battle continued, Nala saw acts of heroism from both species. Human pilots sacrificed their ships to protect Volani vessels, while Volani crews risked everything to rescue human survivors. The alliance that had been born from necessity was becoming something deeper, genuine friendship forged in the fire of battle. The turning point came when engineer Kyung Ho and scientist Rion implemented their joint breakthrough. Working together, they had found a way to disrupt Krek's communications, using a combination of human jamming technology and Volani sensor arrays. "Initiating communication disruption," Kyung Ho reported from the engineering deck. "Rian, are your sensors ready?" "Ready," came the Volani scientist's excited voice. "Beginning wide-spectrum interference now." The effect was immediate and dramatic. The Krek's fleet, which had been fighting in coordinated groups, suddenly broke apart into individual ships. Without communication, their commanders couldn't coordinate. Attacks or call for support. Their formation is collapsing, Sunmi observed with amazement. They're fighting like 50 separate ships instead of one fleet. Now we press the advantage, Admiral Dong-hyun ordered. All ships, focus fire on isolated targets. Don't let them regroup. The Alliance fleet swept through the confused Krex vessels like predators hunting prey. Human ships struck fast and hard, while Volani vessels provided targeting data and defensive support. Ship after ship fell to their coordinated attacks. But the Krex weren't finished yet. Their flagship, a massive battle cruiser, broke away from the main battle and headed directly for the Volani colony world below. They're going to bombard the planet, Nala realized with horror. Millions of civilians are down there. Not while we're here, Admiral Dong-hyun replied grimly. All ships, converge on the Krex flagship. We end this now. The final confrontation took place in orbit above the peaceful Volani colony. The Krex flagship was 3 times larger than any ship in the Alliance fleet, its weapons capable of devastating entire cities. But it was also alone, cut off from support by the communication disruption. And it faced an enemy unlike any the Krex had encountered before, Deathworlders who fought not for conquest, but for protection. Captain Dae-ho led the attack in the Indomitable, his ship taking heavy fire as it closed with the enemy flagship. Behind him came Volani vessels with their shields extended to maximum power, protecting the human ship as it pressed home its assault. "We're taking massive damage," reported the Indomitable's tactical officer. "Shields failing. Hull breaches. On multiple decks. Keep firing," Dae-ho ordered. "We stop them here or not at all." The Harmony's Echo, Nala's own ship, moved alongside the Indomitable to provide shield support. It was a science vessel facing a warship 10 times its size, but Tova's improvements had made it stronger than anyone imagined. "Captain," Tova called, "from engineering, our shields can't take much more of this." "Then we better finish it quickly," Nala replied. She opened a channel to Captain Dae-ho. "This is Nala. We'll maintain shields as long as possible. Make it count." "Understood, Captain. Thank you." The combined fire of the Alliance fleet finally overwhelmed the Krex flagship's defenses. Explosions cascaded across its hull as weapons systems failed and power cores overloaded. With a final brilliant flash, the massive ship broke apart, its wreckage falling harmlessly into the planet's atmosphere. Across the star system, the remaining Krex ships realized their situation was hopeless. One by one, they began retreating toward the edge of Volani space, their invasion plans in ruins. "Krex fleet is withdrawing," Sunmi reported. "All remaining enemy ships are fleeing the system." A cheer went up from both human and Volani crew, members throughout the fleet. They had done the impossible. A peaceful species and their Deathworlder allies had defeated a force that had conquered dozens of other systems. But the victory celebration was brief. Too many ships had been damaged, too many people injured. The real work of saving lives was just beginning. Dr. Yu Jin coordinated medical teams across the fleet, treating both human and Volani casualties with equal care. Engineer Wan Sik led repair efforts that kept damaged ships from breaking apart. Security Chief Jaemin organized rescue operations for crew members trapped in damaged sections. "Casualty report," Admiral Dong-hyun requested quietly. 14 ships with major damage, 6 requiring immediate evacuation, Sunmi replied. But no ships were completely lost, and civilian casualties on the planet were minimal. And the Krex. 37 ships destroyed, 15 escaped. Their invasion fleet is finished. Nala looked around the bridge at the mixed human and Villani crew. They were exhausted, many injured, but they were also something new. Warriors who fought for protection rather than conquest. "Admiral," she said, to Dong Hyun, "what happens now?" "Now we make sure this never happens again," he replied. "The alliance between our peoples isn't just for this battle. It's for the future." 3 days later, as repair operations continued and the last of the wounded received treatment, Nala received a communication from the Villani High Council. They had voted unanimously to establish a permanent military alliance with humanity. "We never wanted to become warriors," Chancellor Ina explained in the transmission. "But you've shown us that sometimes warriors are necessary to protect peace."